Hello Malaysians, the time is about 10 p.m. in the night, and today is the 25th of April, being Thursday. I wish to speak to the people, my brothers and sisters in Sabah and Sarawak especially, because as I said earlier, so far as Peninsular Malaysia is concerned, the people have already decided that they will vote for change. And here is the good news for people in Sabah and Sarawak. This is what you have been waiting for. As a matter of fact, this is what you ought to have been waiting for, because you've been treated very shabbily by Barisan Nasional, otherwise known as UMNO. And let me ask you this question, simple question. First, is not the Chief Minister a Malay? Yes. Is not the Secretary of State for Sabah and Sarawak Malays? Yes. Is not the Chief of Police, the CPO for Sarawak and Sabah Malays? Yes. Is not the district officer in your district a Malay? Yes. And so on and so on. I can just tell you straight off, everything is Malay, you know. And in your own state, where, as I said, in a federation, Sabah and Sarawak are independent states. You are independent of the other states, and you are independent, 80% independent of the federal government of Malaysia, and yet you are treated as if you are a second-class subsidiary state of Federation of Malaysia. The irony of it all is that Sabah and Sarawak are the two biggest states and the two richest states in terms of oil, minerals, timber, and all other natural products. And yet people of Sarawak and Sabah are treated as if they are like dirt. You know, they are even treated worse than the Chinese in Malaysia. At least the Chinese, the Malays give us the respect that is due. They respect us, but they dislike us and they discriminate against us. But for people in Sabah, they don't even respect the people in Sabah and Sarawak. With due respect, really, I'm saying this from observation. I'm not putting down the people of Sabah and Sarawak, because I am canvassing for your support for Pakatan. Therefore, you can conclude from that I do not intend to insult you, but only to tell you what is in actual fact the fact on the ground. Well, I've got very good news for both peoples of Sabah and Sarawak, and for that matter, for the whole of Malaysia. I've got excellent news. I just read from the Malaysian Insider, citing a report by the Straits Times of Singapore. And when you get a report from the Straits Times of Singapore, you can be very sure that it is not biased and that it is factual in every respect. So I am quoting from a study cited by Singapore Straits Times, conducted by the University of Malaysia. Here are the figures. First, generally, an overall figure, the support for Pakatan is 60%. 60% of Peninsular Malaysians support Pakatan, and only 50% support Barisan Nasional. Well, there's a difference in terms of 10%. Don't quibble about that. Somebody suggested that 10% was the illegal blue IC that were issued by Mahathir Mohamad. And this shows also, they also quoted that these figures, 50% and 60%, also reflect the satisfaction in the people of Malaysia for the manifesto of the two parties. In other words, 60% of Malaysians favor the manifesto of Pakatan Rakyat, and only 50% favor the manifesto of Barisan Nasional. And this is more important than that. I like to quote the most important, as a matter of fact. The number of fence-sitters among Malay voters is quoted as 50% before the survey, and now at the time of the survey, the people who are fence-sitters among the Malay voters has increased to 77%. This is the most telling figure. This figure, as a matter of fact, translates into a landslide victory for Pakatan Rakyat, because now 77% of the Malay voters are undecided. They are fence-sitters. Previously, there were only 53%. And for the Chinese, there is even better news for Pakatan Rakyat. Excellent news for Pakatan Rakyat, which I've been hoping for a long time. I've voiced this opinion some 4 years ago, even just at the time of the 2008 election, when I supported Dato Sri Anwar and Pakatan Rakyat. Well, amongst the Chinese fence-sitters, used to be 35% Chinese fence-sitters. Now that 35% has reduced to 70% as of last month. 17% of Chinese are fence-sitters. All the rest, 83%, have committed themselves to vote for Pakatan Rakyat. For the young voters, is even better news for Pakatan Rakyat. Is excellent news for Pakatan Rakyat, because the young fence-sitters of both Malay, Chinese and Indians used to be 23%, but now that percentage has jumped to 48%, mind you, 48%. And this shows that already from this survey, which was conducted by the University of Malaysia, and therefore we can be very sure that if any bias is to be found, it will be a bias that is in favor of Barisan Nasional. And in spite of that, the figures are astounding. The figures for a steep landslide victory for Pakatan is already there, written there. You know, it's already set in stone. Well, I say to people in Sabah and Sarawak, there is another piece of excellent news for people in Sabah. Well, they did not mention Sarawak, I don't know why, but this piece of news is better than the news I read earlier, because not better, but it reflects the good news that I announced earlier, and that is that Sabah used to be derogatively described as a fixed deposit for Barisan Nasional, is now registered as a swing state by the reporters of Straits Times Singapore. This is the best news ever. This is the best news ever. Because if in 2008 the people of Sabah had reflected this tendency, in 2008 Pakatan would have taken government at that time. But now we find from the report from the Straits Times that Sabah is now a swing state. and that is the best news that we can ever hope for. People in Sabah and Sarawak, I heard one of your leaders speak. His name is Dato' Bamburing, who's a DSP, such a prominent man, a Sabahan, and he was very articulate. I enjoyed listening to him because he spoke very well, very clean lines, and very persuasive, and he was a joy to listen to. If I can say, because I didn't understand Malay that much, but if anything, I can even compare him to Dato' Sri Anwar. He was as articulate as Dato' Sri Anwar. But there's one thing which Anwar has as an orator that I don't find in Mr. Bamburing, and that is that Dato' Sri Anwar has a very keen sense of humor. I mean, when he speaks, everybody claps and everybody enjoy himself, in laughter and everything. Dato' Sri Anwar is a class all by himself. But then Mr. Bamburing, Dato' Bamburing is not too far behind him either. And therefore, I had earlier claimed support for Dato' Kitingang. Between Dato' Kitingang and Yong Teck Lee, I will encourage the people of Sabah to follow the lead of Kitingang. But then I hadn't heard Mr. Bamburing at that time. So now that I've heard Mr. Bamburing, I find him a very sincere man, a very solid man, a very decisive man. And this is the sort of leader that the people of Sabah can be very proud of. And in spite of such a dynamic, charismatic leader, Mr. Bamburing could only become a DSP. A DSP is only one crown in the old days, and that is about 4 or 5 levels below the SEC level. This reflects very poorly on the government of UMNO, because they have hogged all the senior positions for Malays. And what about the natives of Sabah? The Sabahans, the Dayaks, the Muruts, the Kadasans, the Ibans. Consider this. Go and think and discuss among yourselves how many of the important posts that are given to the Malays in Sabah, which ought to be given to the people of the natives of Sabah instead. And you will find that Mr. Bamburing at the rank of DSP is one of the rare birds. There won't be many of equivalent rank. And if I can say so myself, Mr. Bamburing should rightly be Senior Assistant Commissioner of Police, holding the rank of Chief of Police for Sabah. Well, as I said earlier, don't expect too much from UMNO. Now, my final point is this. I again stress the importance of voting for Pakatan Rakyat, because when you vote for Pakatan Rakyat, you hold the trump card. Pakatan Rakyat is a winning party. Pakatan Rakyat is on the winning side of the track. And why not? Why be embarrassed about supporting the winning side? I always support the winning side. I choose, and if this side is the winning side, I will support winning side. So why be shy of doing that? So I say to my brothers and sisters in Sabah and Sarawak, vote for Pakatan Rakyat, so that you will be in the next government and you will be in the position to bargain for the true independence of Sabah and Sarawak. Remember, people of Sabah and Sarawak, your independence is at stake. You are at this particular time under the Federation of Malaysia, not truly independent. You are a colonial state, just like in the old days when the British held you as a colonial state. The UMNO is holding you as a colonial state. And to break yourself free from this change which is restraining you, you need to vote Pakatan Rakyat. And when you are in government with Pakatan Rakyat, tell them straight to the face, we want back our Sarawak and we want back our Sabah. And we can negotiate. We can negotiate so that we can get a greater degree of autonomy like Hong Kong is to the mainland of China. Negotiate for the status of, say, Hong Kong is to the mainland of China. Well, I will come up and speak again. Good night and God bless.